Satisfied. Let's talk about Thor: Love and Thunder. Let me start because I probably
Mhm.
am going to be more positive than you, which to my surprise. But
Yeah, go right ahead.
I'll give you the time to charge yourself. Um,
Okay, thank you, thank you.
but look, I my expectations were really low because I'm not the biggest fan of Ragnarok. I think that movie. Um, so my fundamental problem with you know superhero movies or any movie in general, like I don't like when the creator is making fun of the material itself, right? So you can poke fun, you can be funny about it, but don't make fun of the stuff you're making. Then nobody will take you seriously. Like why should the audience invest their time to watch something you created that you even think is silly, right? So
Mhm.
Ragnarok had a lot of that. Ragnarok had, the Thor parody, everyone making fun of Thor, Thor making fun of, Hulk, and the Grandmaster. Everything was just a joke, right? But
Mhm.
again, that movie also had a lot of heart. That movie had a lot of story as well. There was a good villain. There were some good visuals, and the action was pretty good in some scenes. So it was not all that bad. I wouldn't say it was a very bad movie. I would just say that um the silly self-deprecating humor, stuff like that, doesn't work for me. So if people loved it, that's fine. They might like this movie too, but I was kind of expecting, because after Ragnarok went out and made Jojo Rabbit and won an Oscar for writing. Then I was expecting, before seeing the trailers, I was expecting that Love and Thunder would probably have more of the seriousness because Jane is suffering from cancer. Spoiler alert. But you'd expect that to be a serious type of movie, right? At least
Right.
some seriousness more than Ragnarok. But when the reviews started coming out, and the people who usually praise every MCU movie were shitting on this movie, and they were saying that Taika just kind of is full of himself here, and is he took the silliness of Ragnarok to the extreme, and I was like, wow, that's something completely opposite. It was what I was imagining for this movie, but because of that, my expectations were really low, right? So
Mhm.
the trailers I really liked because they got me with the song, you know, Guns N'
Oh
Roses.
yeah.
I love that. So um, yeah, the trailers were really good, and I started watching the movie. Right, the first
Right.
act is good. I didn't think it was bad. I thought that the first act was going fine. It was kind of adventurous, kind of serious, kind of funny, and all that. But the second act, when they, when they meet together and they go for when they go executing the plan,
Mhm.
that's when it all went to shit. Zeus was I thought Zeus was fine, but I didn't like the way they wrote his character and the way some of the jokes went too far. I mean, too far into not being funny territory.
Mhm.
And they overdid some of the things, and some scenes were just really really unnecessary. Like, even in a funny way, it was unnecessary to the movie because he cut all the other stuff out of the movie and kept that, so
Mhm.
that makes it even worse. So the second act just didn't jive with me at all. I was just straight faced watching everything, and I was like, neither of this is funny. And to my surprise, in my theater, a lot of people felt the same way as well. Like, they were laughing a lot of times, but way lesser than Ragnarok. Like, I've been in a theater in Ragnarok where people were dying for every scene. And I would say that Ragnarok had a bigger scale than this movie, and it was actually funnier than this movie, even if some of
Mhm.
the silly jokes were present in that. But here, some of the jokes were not even funny, and I didn't enjoy the second act at all. But when the gore stuff starts to ramp up in the third act, I thought that was pretty good. Third act was um, it was more serious than the first two acts, so comparatively, it was pretty good. And the message of the movie was pretty good. I thought the Jane stuff was also pretty good. I liked how the dynamic was between those two, and the final scene was actually really surprising. It wasn't the movie didn't end on the villain being defeated, but it went by action. It went on for an emotional scene instead. So I liked that choice. It was probably not the best for this movie, but I liked the choice. And I like the performances. Of course, Bale was good, and but with that all said, I also would say that um, you could watch this movie on Disney Plus, because this is not cinematic at all. Again, the usage of volume is very limiting, you know, and I think this is the worst usage of volume ever until date. And it was so bad. Like, you could see they are standing on a set with
Mhm.
one object to the right and then a screen in the back. You can literally see it, and it was so bad in some scenes. I wouldn't say this movie is totally like that, because a lot of scenes are also pretty visually great, especially in the third act. But
Mhm. Yeah.
the second act, the locations they chose, especially with the Guardians of the Galaxy there and all that, it was very poorly done and shouldn't have been in the movie, at least unfinished, or without hiding it, because I'm shocked how they could allow this in 2022, to be honest. But as for the Guardians, I always love the Guardians. No matter where they show up, I love them. They are in this movie, and I I was expecting them to do more than they did, which I was kind of disappointed about. But I did understand it later that they were there. My friend told me that it was mainly to promote the holiday special and the third Guardians movie, I think, and which makes
Mhm.
sense because
Yeah.
Rocket literally in that scene was talking about a holiday, an actual holiday, and stuff like that. So it makes sense. But that's also a pretty smart choice, I think, on part of James Gunn to keep the Guardians hype going, to promote his own stuff as well. So yeah, I'm actually looking forward to that more now, because there's this one action scene in this movie with involving the Guardians, but it's just one shot and it's not a full sequence, and it just has a voiceover. And I was like, come on, just at least show the full scene that you're filming here,
Mhm.
because that looked like an
Yeah.
awesome scene, like in the water. That
Mhm.
was pretty cool. But yeah, overall, I don't think it's bad. I think it's okay. If you have zero expectations, I think you won't be disappointed. But you might be disappointed by a lot of the movie, but you won't be completely disappointed or hate it, I think, if you have zero expectations. But
Mhm.
I didn't hate the movie. I hated the last Star Wars movie. I wouldn't say that I hated this one. I thought it was okay. It was, again, Taika being Taika on twice than he was before. So if you are expecting that, then you won't be disappointed. But if you really like those type of jokes and Taika humor and stuff, you probably will love the movie. As I see some people loving the movie, and I don't understand why, but every person is different, so who knows. But also, there's something at the end where a scene plays out and the title of the movie makes sense, which I thought was pretty good as well. And they set up something for the next movie and going forward. So that part also I liked for Thor's arc. I liked that part. And of course, again, the movie had to end with my favorite song. Um, so that was pretty cool. And the post credit scenes, dude. The first post credit scene was, I think, one of the really good ones from Marvel so far,
Mhm.
because that really got me. There's a casting that is unannounced, and it's a complete surprise, which is really amazing, and I'm so excited for that. I cannot wait to see that. This is twice now they did the unannounced casting right in the post credit scene or something. The first one is with Charlize Theron, and that was
All
also a
right,
big
yeah,
surprise. But
yeah.
yeah, I loved the post credit scene. So yeah, that was my thoughts on Thor: Love and Thunder. Mine would probably be more love, and yours probably would be more thunder. So go ahead, take the stage. This is your stage, the area in front of Zeus. Speak.
All right, thank you. All right, well, thank you. Let me reiterate what I let me start up with what I said as my first reaction on Twitter, where I said it felt like a 6-year-old wrote a script in crayon, and thank God you weren't there to watch it with me, because you would have heard me go like this. Oh, oh,
I was
like
doing that internally. Don't worry.
well, even better. Yeah, I mean, look, I would. Thor remains one of my favorite Marvel characters. When I read that, I mean, I was a big fan of like the '90s run of Thor comic books and the Mark Miller Ultimate Thor comic books when I was a kid, and I loved the first Thor movie because I felt like I was watching that version of Thor. You know what I mean? It was very grand. It's lush. It's a little over the top, but that's kind of what Thor comics were. And even with the Dark World, I mean, I know people give that movie shit for some reason, but I really enjoyed the Dark World.
I'm with you.
I wasn't bit. Yeah, great minds think alike, motherfucker.
I think the
So,
Thor movies went downhill. Like, I like them in the order. Like, first Thor movie is the best one, then Dark World, then Ragnarok, then Love and Thunder.
that is the same with me. That
Yeah.
is the exact same with me. But the thing is, though, that with the first two Thor films, I still felt like there was progression with the character. The first movie, he's this he's this pompous, arrogant dude who learns how to be kind of like a more of a selfless person.
Mm-hmm.
And in the second movie, he comes to terms with what it's like to be a king, and at the end, he straight up says, I'm not fit to be a king. I'm not ready for that, and he decides to just be more of Earth's protector.
Mm-hmm.
Then when it came to the third movie, it felt like they just went backwards with Thor,
Yeah.
and you know what I mean? Like they started making him very kind of like jokey, and look, Ragnarok I wasn't hot on, but there were some moments in that movie that I think are legit great. Like I like that Thor learns that Asgard doesn't live on doesn't live on as a place, it lives on through the people.
Yeah.
Like I like that Thor learned from that. I actually think some of the jokes hit me really well. Like it's
Yeah.
like more like the smaller ones, like Thor saying to the Hulk how they don't like Bruce Banner, and then Thor says to Bruce Banner how they don't like the Hulk, and Grandmaster calling his slaves prisoners with jobs and stuff like that. Like it's those are the type of jokes that actually did hit with me.
Yeah.
But this, on the other hand, I no joke really hit me. Like I chuckled maybe once or twice, like on some passing scenes, but that's pretty much it. But this movie stinks. Because I mean, like for one, Thor is literally a fucking idiot in this movie.
Yep.
Like he's just this. They just kind of like degraded him as just this moron. Like it's like Thor ultimately is pretty much Eric Matthews from Boy Meets World. He starts out in at the beginning of the series as this kind of like well-rounded, good brother, and then they started sprinkling in him some more and more silly stuff for him. Then by the time it got to the final two seasons, he was a fucking idiot. And that's how it just felt with Thor. And some of the jokes in this movie, I literally turned to my friend and I said to him out loud. A lot of people in the theater probably heard me when I said this, but I turned to him and I said, "This is fucking stupid."
Yeah.
Like there was a joke with Stormbreaker and Mjolnir, that I just was going like this feels like a child wrote this.
I mean, I wouldn't lie to you. I like the Stormbreaker stuff. I thought that, I thought Stormbreaker was actually the best character in the movie because it actually got a personality, even though the jokes are like kind of silly because of, the friction between Mjolnir and stuff. The way the scenes played out, like Stormbreaker is slowly coming onto the screen from the side. That was kind of funny to me.
But it takes away the cool aspect of
Yep.
Stormbreaker and of Mjolnir in the past movies.
Yep. That's what I'm saying. Like within the context of this movie, I would say comparatively, some of the scenes are good. But if you think about overall, from Thor 1, or even I think, the Thor franchise needed a reboot, right? Surely they proved it, the box office did well, people love it, blah blah blah. But I think the Russos did Thor better because they got this new version of Thor, and in their movies, Thor is, yes, similar. He's funny, poking fun and all that, always jolly, but he also has those serious emotional scenes, and he also has those strong mythic Thor type of scenes as well. So I think the
Yeah,
balance
that
is pretty good there, but here it's not.
it's not because the Russos actually are just better directors. They actually care,
Mm-hmm.
and that's why I just felt like Thor is just directed by someone like Taika, who I don't really even think gives a shit.
Yeah, I think
Like
he's
he's just
trolling everyone, even Feige.
yeah, exactly. Like it's the most kind of like it's the most expensive troll ever.
Yeah,
Which I'm all for trolling, but I'm all for trolling. I'm all for that, but don't do it like this. This is just fucking ridiculous.
yeah,
And it gets to a point where I feel like I was watching an SNL like sketch comedy parody of Thor.
yep,
Like it just didn't it just did not kind of like click with me. And it's and when you mentioned kind of like the whole trolling thing, Taika does some things with like the past Thor films that he just kind of like practically just laughs at. I mean, this isn't a spoiler alert because she mentioned this. She's mentioned this on her Instagram and everything like that. But Sif is back in the movie. I was glad to see Sif back because
yeah.
I
Oh
I
man,
love Sif.
I love
And
Sif
first
as
off,
well.
yeah, first I mean I haven't seen her since Agents of Shield, I
Yep.
believe, which has been
She
forever.
shows
But
up whenever they need her. She's awesome.
pretty much that's why I mean more props to Jamie Alexander. She's that's why we love her. And I'm glad that first off I'm glad they gave her a more comic accurate Sif costume this time around because Sif does have like the helmet in the comic books and that's kind of like what she wears. So I was glad they were able to do it. But they give her this scene that's kind of like a jokey joke version of their scene from the first Thor where Sif goes, I'm going to die as a warrior.
Yeah.
And they do it in this way that is just fucking horrible.
Yeah. I didn't like that
And
scene.
I didn't like it. I also didn't like when Korg is doing like the backstory of the films and they're doing the recap. They gloss over the fact that Thor's best friends got killed.
Yeah. They made all of
So
that a joke as well. Like,
yeah, exactly. Like practically Thor doesn't. That's the thing. Thor doesn't feel like a human being anymore. It just feels like a walking punchline.
yeah. And that's
So
mostly because of Taika. Like he also thinks that Thor is ridiculous. Like no matter how funny you want to make your characters, like I would credit Whedon for that. Like, he would also have jokes, a lot of stupid jokes as well, but he took his characters seriously, right? Taika doesn't
yeah,
do that. He makes fun of his own characters as well. Like his characters are like the silliest people in the world.
exactly. And it's just like I mean, look, I'm not above Thor being funny. I mean, Thor is funny in the comic books, but it's a very kind of like the joke of Thor is just how his over the top god personality clashes with non-gods.
Mm-hmm.
So like when you look back on the first Thor movie and you get to the moment where he smashes the coffee mug or he demands a horse in the pet store, like
Yeah.
those are very comic Thor jokes.
Yeah, yeah. Those were funny, yes.
They,
But
they are they're
self-deprecating, like
great.
making yourself stupid and all that I don't like.
Neither do I. It's stupid and it sucks because like we mentioned kind of like how much of an idiot Thor is, and how first off they barely use Valkyrie in this movie, which I didn't like because I thought Valkyrie was the standout of Ragnarok.
Yeah, she's here just
So
for exposition.
pretty much she's here because they're like, well, we made a new Thor movie, so we gotta have Valkyrie in the mix.
Mhm.
So it feels like she's there just to be there. But it's like, you know, they do a goofy Thor. They barely use Valkyrie. They make Sif silly, and yet on the other side you have Christian Bale and Natalie Portman giving it their
Oh
all.
man, I think one of the gore scenes that when all of them get captured, that scene was pretty fucking good from Bale and Natalie Portman. But
Absolutely.
also one complaint I have about Gore, I forgot to mention this because he is literally called Gore the God Butcher,
Mm-hmm.
which was
I know
actually
where
a
you're going.
big troll on all of us because it's called the God Butcher, not the God's Butcher. So in the movie, it's kind of a spoiler, but it's not that big. He only kills one god. That is
Yep.
it. That's the only bad thing he does the entire movie. Nothing else. And he's the
Exactly.
villain.
Exactly. And I feel like a lot of gore stuff was cut out of the movie because probably Taika was like, "Oh, this is too mean. This is too serious. We gotta get back to the comedy." Like even
Then what's the
Christian Bale.
point?
That's what I'm like. I'm like, he's a villain. That's what they do.
Yeah.
Like it's the same thing that happened with Kate Blanchett and Ragnarok. Like they barely use Blanchett in Ragnarok.
Yeah. But again, in that I understand like she's their sister, right? So you can't go
Right.
too far. But he's literally called the God Butcher, and you
Yeah.
start the movie literally with him, and he is on this literally on this quest to killing all the gods, right? But he does nothing else. Like not even two gods. It's just one god in the beginning, and that's it. He does nothing.
Exact. If you want your villain to have a quest for revenge, you show their quest for revenge.
Yeah.
I mean, look at X-Men First Class, for instance. I mean, kind of like the first half of that movie is Magneto going around the world fighting all of the Nazis that did the experiments to him, and he's killing them off one by one.
Mm-hmm.
Like you're in there with his quest. You're not in there with Gore's quest.
Yeah.
So it just didn't make it. It was like they pretty much. I felt like they practically kind of like they wasted Christian Bale in this movie, which I kind of figured would happen because it's a Marvel villain. It's one. It's always been kind
Especially
of
a
like
Taika villain.
a Taika. Yeah, exactly. Well, exactly, because he's like, oh, he's too mean. We gotta get back to the comedy. So it's like I said, Christian Bale is giving it his all, and so is Natalie Portman. Natalie Portman, I think this is the best Jane Foster has been in these movies.
Yeah.
Like, she's amazing in this film, and yet she's giving her all into this movie that really just doesn't deserve it.
Yeah. I liked her in Dark World as well. Like she was always,
Yeah, goodness.
yeah, it was pretty good. But yeah, she's amazing in this movie. But again, some of the scenes just don't utilize her fully. So
Nope. Nope. And it's a shame. It's a shame I'm ripping this apart because I'm sorry if it sounds like my mind's just all over the place. That's how I usually am when I talk about.
just like the editing.
Pretty much. So
the
it's
the
pretty much how
worst the worst part about the editing was, okay, if you are making a joke, right, go ahead, make a joke, but after the joke at least have a 2 second space with the other character's reaction or the audience to just take in that joke and at least laugh or do something. You instantly, right after the sentence ends, you cut to another line, another scene. That just undermines your own things. Like, why are you even having those lines if you don't want them to, if you don't want the audience to take in that joke? Because I think the movie could, improve from its current state if you add in like 15-20 minutes of just letting some of the scenes breathe a little, because I thought that some of the comedy was undercut because of that, because you said the line and instantly after the line ends you cut to the next scene and they just move on. Like that's not how comedy works. So
No, I mean, I'm no, I mean, I'm literally from the school of SNL, and when a joke hits, you let the audience actually have a reaction to it,
yeah.
and have like a 5 second, laugh, and then when it's good, you move on to the next joke and move on to how to progress that joke in that sense. So it's you're right. It just feels like they just cut, kind of like just their jokes a little quickly. I mean, it's awkward, but it even feels more awkward when the jokes don't hit. Like
Mm-hmm.
not a lot of people in my audience were laughing.
Yeah,
There was
same.
not a laugh moment. There wasn't even like a cheer moment.
Yeah. I
Like
think the only
like
cheer moment which I was expecting as well was during, Mighty Thor's entrance. But that was in the trailer.
yeah, people, that's the thing where people expected it.
Yeah.
So it's there was nothing kind of like that in this movie. So it's a shame, and also it's also a shame too because this is Thor kicking ass to Welcome to the Jungle, which like look, you know me, I'm a Guns N' Roses guy. Like I should love it just for that reason alone.
Yeah.
Hell, I'll admit when that happened, I actually had a dumb smile on my face. I was actually thinking to myself, all right, maybe I can actually have fun with this, and then the attempt at humor started,
Yeah. Like the second
and you
act
just
really, really, really brought down the movie quite a bit.
oh my god, like Russell Crowe was so bad in this movie,
Yeah.
and I mean, and I mean, like, and I don't blame him because I mean, we know he's a great actor. It's
Yeah.
just that he's given Taika direction. I mean, it's it didn't make sense. And also, why does Zeus have a Russian accent?
I think it was Greek or something based
And
on
that is one shitty Greek
yeah.
accent.
Based on Taika's mentality, I think it was that. But um I didn't have I didn't have a problem with how Zeus is portrayed, because I get that, um they're just going by the mythic gods type of thing, how they really are, how Zeus is like with women and stuff like that, and how they're just lazy and careless. They don't care. That was, I think that hit with me really well, because that's also Gore's arc. He was, he saw that in the beginning, and that's the reason he went on this quest. But again, that would have been amplified if Gore was actually a villain throughout the movie and then changed at the
Yeah.
end. But that, you know, low part for Gore didn't happen. He was not that. So that kind of was like, why would you do this to Christian fucking Bale?
I completely agree. Like I said, it's a waste of just of Christian Bale like that. It's just didn't make sense, and it gets also to another thing. Another kind of like issue. Just I had this movie. Well, I have a lot of issues with this movie, but it's like you get to the ending and you don't feel any of the stakes at all.
Yeah.
You don't feel like you're at the edge of your seat. Like, and I've heard people say, "Well, it's a comedy. You're not supposed to think about it. Just laugh." And like, I want to bring an example to you. Like, you remember the movie The Mask, the Jim Carrey movie, The Mask?
Yep.
Yeah, that movie is the most cartoony, silly comedy I've seen. One of the most cartoony, silly comedy that I've seen. But in the last like 20 minutes of the film, the stakes are high. Cameron Diaz is strapped to the bomb. The people in the club are held hostage, and the jokes stop. Like it's literally just a race against time,
Mm-hmm.
and you feel the stakes. And then once it's over, once they've resolved that issue, then it's back to the jokes as it should be because it's a comedy.
Yeah.
But I did not feel like there were any stakes in this movie at all.
Yeah. None at all.
Like I said, it's just because and the reasoning why jokes.
Yeah. Oh, and what did you
And
think about, this is kind of a spoiler, so spoiler alert, but what do you think about the kids, distributing the Thor power and stuff?
It was very.
Don't you
It was
think it's a plot
very.
hole based on the rest of the MCU?
It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense because Thor could have done this in past
Yeah.
MCU films. So it was stupid. It was like Taika Waititi watched Beyond Thunderdome and he was just kind of like, he's like, I want to do that, but I'm gonna do that with a Thor movie.
Yeah. It was a cool scene in concept,
Mm-hmm.
the way it played out, but I was like, how does this work? Because can you just give it to just about anybody now?
Mm-hmm.
And maybe it has to do with the new weapon, Zeus's weapon, but how would Thor know that then? Because it's kind of weird. It doesn't make sense. But
It doesn't
again,
at all.
I'm looking for sense in a Taika Thor movie. So who really is stupid here?
uh, it's. I mean, even though it's a comedy, there should be some rules, I guess.
Yes.
I mean, that's so. I don't know, but it does lead me. The kids thing, it leads me to what I consider the worst CGI in the movie, which is
Oh,
like,
dude,
which
the
is.
floating head.
I mean, this is yeah. The point. This has gone around Twitter, so I'm not spoiling anything.
Yeah,
So, the floating head CGI looked like something out of a '90s Nickelodeon movie. Like
dude.
when I was when I was a kid, that Nickelodeon would have those like movies of the week. Some of them would be like some like sci-fi or fantasy movie, and then they would do kind of like a Star Wars hologram moment, and it would look something like that. Like that's what it reminded me of.
What's funny about that scene is, Korg, aka Taika, literally says "floating head alert" in that scene, and I was like, dude.
Yeah,
It's like he wanted that to happen, and it just looked really bad.
it looked bad. Like I said to myself, this is Disney. So these are the guys that made fucking Mandalorian and Infinity War. And I
Infinity
was like,
War,
you told me
yeah.
they can. And you told me it told me they did this shit, and they're like, yeah, it's perfect. Let's put it in the movie.
I don't know, man.
Like,
Yeah.
sorry,
The more
like
they're making the movies, the lesser the quality control is becoming.
exact, and same with the TV shows too, because I
Yeah.
mean, it's like some of the shows look fucking incredible. Like Falcon Winter Soldier, the effects look great, and same with Miss Marvel. Other shows like Moon Knight look like the effects look super cartoony.
Mm-hmm.
So it's I don't know, man. I don't. Also, one more thing. No more CGI babies for me, please. When I saw that CGI like okay, like it's I guess it's a spoiler alert, but it's at the beginning of the movie, Korg is doing a backstory of Thor's life, and it shows Thor as a baby, and it does this close up on the baby's face, and it's a CGI face, and I literally said to myself, "Are we back in Twilight now? What's going on?"
Oh man, Twilight has the worst.
They got competition now. I will say that much.
But yeah, clearly this movie is a lot of fun. Um,
It's a blast. Pay IMAX money for it.
yep, go. You know what? I didn't watch it in IMAX, and I kind of regret that.
I actually did watch it on IMAX.
Cool.
In to the movie's credit, the aspect ratio did expand during the core
Oh, it wasn't fully
shadow
like
realm
that?
part. No, it wasn't full. No, it was like
Oh.
certain scenes actually expanded like that. So like,
I actually thought that I was missing some of the stuff in not in IMAX because there were some scenes where something drops on the floor and it's just not on the shot. And I thought that
mhm,
was just because, they cut the movie. But if that's not in there, that's all in the second act, not the third.
yeah,
So I was like, "Oh shit." So that's not supposed to be seen. Okay. Good to know. Then I didn't miss much.
yeah. Not at all, man. Like a successful director just thought, yeah, it's good enough.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I've told my friends who haven't watched this movie. I said because they said to me, "Oh, I kind of want to see." It. I'm like, just wait until it gets to Disney
Yeah.
Plus. I said go wait until it goes to Disney Plus and fast forward to the gore and Lady Thor scenes, and you're good. And the end credit scenes, because the end credit scenes were actually cool.
Yeah. And just for the music, if you're a big Guns N' Roses fan, just for the
Yeah,
music, maybe you'll enjoy it.
ex- exactly. But overall, like I said, this movie stinks. It's like in my book, it's probably up there with Guardians of the Galaxy 2 and Iron Man 3 and Captain Marvel as some of the worst MCU.
Damn, you hate Guardians too?
Because Guardians 2 to me was same problem I had with Thor, where I was like, it's like an hour and 40 minutes of jokes and 20 minutes of story. But at least with Guardians 2, I can cut back to the stuff with Yondu and Rocket and I actually like that stuff.
Yeah.
But this, on the other hand, like I said, this movie just stinks.
And to my surprise, it's actually, rightfully getting bashed by a lot of critics and, audiences as well. But on Rotten Tomatoes, the audience score, the last time I checked, it was in the 80s, but the critic score is in the 60s. And it's the fourth worst reviewed, on Rotten Tomatoes in the entire MCU. So I would agree with that actually. I would say, it's down there with um Ant-Man 2 and Captain Marvel, Spider-Man Far From Home and this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's just like I said, just to me, you watch like say what you will about like Ragnarok or or Thor: The Dark World or even the first Thor, like those movies look like that there was at least an attempt. Like you could tell that they tried to make something good. This just felt like everyone was on fucking autopilot.
Yep, I agree.
And I think the Thor franchise, it needs, if there's gonna be, well, there's gonna be a fifth one. Chris Evans says he wants
And
to play
he's
Thor
going to do
like
it.
that. Oh yeah, he's gonna do it, but they can't get Taika back.
I meant
They
Taika
gotta
is
get
going to
it.
do it.
Oh god,
You know why? Because of all the
why
things
is
he
that?
set up in this movie. I think he is going to do it. It's kind of on track to make a lot of money as well. So maybe that will give him the pass, you know. Feige usually doesn't care if the audience, the critic score is low. So he should care this
Well,
time, I think. But I don't.
unless it's Eternals, because we haven't heard any news about Eternals.
Yeah. I just hope they make a second movie, man. I really want it.
Yeah,
Eternals was one of the top MCU movies for me.
yeah. I actually rewatched Eternals a few weeks ago. Like I was sitting there going like, oh, this is actually better than this is better than how I remembered it.
Hmm.
So I'd much rather prefer something like that over this piece of crap.